Behind these doors, America's future is being shaped. Inside, you'll find some of the world's most important teachers. These aren't Ivy League universities, they're homes. And new research shows that what happens here during the first 5 years of your child's life will make a difference for the rest of his or her life. Every parent has looked into their newborn baby's eyes and seen unlimited potential. And now we know how to help them achieve that. Too Small to Fail is all about giving parents, families, businesses, and communities the tools we need to help all our children succeed.
Wow, that's an ad from Too Small to Fail, a youth education initiative that's being promoted by former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton at the Clinton Global Initiative. And joining us now from Chicago, former President Bill Clinton and former White House Chief of Staff and current Democratic Mayor of Chicago, Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us on the show this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Well, Mr. President, let's start with you. We've read about Too Small to Fail. It looks like a very exciting concept and certainly is in line with what your wife has been talking about for years and what scientists have started to understand, that, you know, we used to say, oh, if you don't get to a child by the time they're 12, we lose them. And then it was by the time they're 5, we lose them. More and more we're learning if you don't get to them by the time they're 2 or 3, we lose so much.
Well, we do know that an enormous part of the brain's internal architecture is formed in the first 2 or 3 years, and we know there are some things that can be done by people if they work together in tight-knit communities without regard to the income of the families. But you've got to have the involvement of the parents, and you've got to have the involvement of the community. And I think that Hillary believes a really big difference can be made just by organizing people to do very specific, practical things. And based on the experience we've had in the fight against childhood obesity, I would say she's right. So she's excited about it, and we're going to do what we can to support her.
Well, it's very exciting. And Rahm Emanuel, this is, of course, a 6-month anniversary of a very tragic date. 6 months ago in Newtown, of course, 20 young children were killed in Newtown, Connecticut, while they were in first grade. You have been suffering through this sort of violence in Chicago for some time, but good news on that front over the past 6 months. Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, it's a comprehensive strategy, not different from what we basically took a page out of the 1994 crime bill, which is about putting more police on the street and getting kids, guns, and drugs off the street. We've had a saturation strategy with police in particular areas with a preponderance of gun violence. We've also put 18,000 kids into after-school programs and summer jobs, activities, and what we call Windy City Hoops. We've also, and by the way,
Mr. Mayor, we're showing a full screen right now that shows Chicago homicides down 34% over the past year. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Actually, as of this morning, they're down 80 fewer homicides. But the most important thing is what I call the 4 Ps that also associate with what the president just talked about. 1 is policing. 2 is parenting. That is, parents have to teach their kids right from wrong. They have to have them indoors, following the curfew laws that we have here. 3rd is prevention, after-school programs, investments in our children, because a lot of kids want to do the right things, and give them the opportunity to do that, they will choose the right thing. And then stiffer penalties, so when you commit a gun crime, you serve your time. And all of that is just copied what the president initiated with the 94 crime bill, that actually makes sure that our police are on the street, both kids, guns, and drugs are off the street. And if you do that, you'll start to see both the reduction in homicides that we're seeing in Chicago, the reduction in shooting we're seeing, and overall crime is down to a record low that we haven't seen since the 60s here in the city of Chicago. But the most important thing is involving parents in their children's lives. And I've always said, you give me 50,000 active fathers in their sons' lives, and you won't have to worry about how many prevention or police officers you have. And that's what's missing, and it's an important ingredient. And when you don't have it, you got to support it with the right type of mentoring and prevention programs to keep our kids in safe places, mentored and doing good activities where they learn a lot about themselves.
I want to ask both of you about the task force you're working on, but first, Mr. President, you've had some pretty forceful, tough words for our current president for not being more aggressive, if I can characterize that correctly, on Syria. Given the news of the past 24 hours, what do you think our options should be, and what would you like to see our strategy be?
Well, first of all, I think I've been a little amazed by the coverage of this. I just did a question and answer session for Senator McCain's Institute, and the last or next to last question was something about Syria, and I said that I didn't think we should give up on them. And now that the Iranians were in there clearly, overtly, with the Hezbollah coming out of Lebanon, it's an external as well as an internal fight. And if I think that we should support the rebel groups more vigorously. And the White House announced that they intend to do that. And I think that they also have now made a finding that sarin gas was used on several occasions. So it looks to me like the president, first of all, was entitled to finish his summit with the Chinese president, get this finding, be briefed, and they are now exploring their options. There are some logistical complications, as you might imagine, in getting more support into them. And he wants to talk to our allies and see whether they can help on that at this upcoming G8 meeting. It looks to me like this thing is trending in the right direction now.
And you made a great point, Mr. President, if the press got this right, that you've got, of course, the Syrians, you've got the Iranians, you've got Hezbollah, you've got the Russians, all of these people that are tipping the scales in the way of a government that is killing tens of thousands of people. That begs for a response on the other side, does it not?
Well, I think that about 90,000 people have died there, and of course there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of refugees, and now that it's becoming a lot of outsiders involved in the fight, I think that the White House has made it clear that they intend to do more. They're exploring their options, and right now they don't want to talk about the details, and I don't blame them, because the less they talk about the details, the more likely their increased assistance is likely to be effective. And as I said, they want to see what our other allies are willing to do. So I think on balance, this should be seen as a positive story, that America has the information now about the chemical attacks. They clearly know that there are other outside powers involved trying to shore up Assad and his repressive tactics. And the president's going to be given the opportunity to talk to a lot of his counterparts at the G8 meeting, and let's see what happens. But I do understand why they don't want to talk in a lot of detail about whatever they've decided to do, and Rom does too, and about the logistics of getting any kind of extra assistance into them.
Right. So let's talk about CGI America and why you're in Chicago and what you and Mayor Emanuel have been doing.
Because of the Blackhawks.
Regarding infrastructure. You know, I saw your brother yesterday morning on set.
Oh, my Lord.
Wearing a Blackhawks T-shirt.
Yeah, very tight.
You and I both know it's too tight for
tight.
A guy his age. You and I both know that Artie is such a front runner.
We're here because they played those 2 overtime games.
That's right.
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
actually here because the president wanted some tickets, and I got them for him.
Okay,
well,
very
simple.
good. So that's so
Maybe
this
you
whole
can send Ari a T-shirt.
Okay, so send Ari a T-shirt that fits. So this whole infrastructure stuff it's just a ruse. They want to see the Stanley Cup playoffs. But let's pretend.
No, it's actually actually building a paved road all the way to the stadium.
Okay, very good.
That makes sense.
Well, let's talk about infrastructure. Obviously, the United States. You fly in from overseas to the United States, and sometimes you think you're coming into a third world country with some of our airports, our roads, our bridges. It's deplorable.
Well, here's the thing. You know, we met last year here in Chicago. The president convened a group of mayors to discuss different ways to finance infrastructure, whether it's airports, mass transit system, parks, schools, roads, water systems. There is a dire need in America. Every city has it, and it unlocks huge amount of economic growth and job creation. And every mayor has not only more needs than they have resources, but they have to look at creative ways to finance it. And the president brought us together. We now have a working group of about 12 mayors under President Clinton's jurisdiction and direction, and are coming up with innovative ways to meet our needs, because there's not the resources coming out of Washington and our state capitals to meet all the obligations. And the cities in these respective states are the ones driving the overwhelming economic energy and economic activity. We just made an announcement at our airport for the city of Chicago. Huge potential. It's 3,000 jobs. But when we keep O'Hare in the forefront of economic and modernization, it allows the rest of the economy of the city of Chicago to grow exponentially. And the president's been very helpful for all of us thinking through different ways of making these type of investments that have a multiplier effect on job creation. And we're doing it on our mass transit. When we're done in 5 years, every child's going to be within a 7-minute walk of a new park, and that has huge potential for neighborhood economic development as well.
I like it.
And let me just say one other thing about this. The one area where America, which generally is more of a free enterprise, let the private sector do it country than a lot of our, let's say, European counterparts, even some of our Asian counterparts, the one area where we have lagged behind is in attracting private capital to public infrastructure. Everything from water and sanitation systems to parks to modern airports and other transit. And Rahm has really pioneered this in Chicago. When the infrastructure bank, which used to have a great deal of bipartisan support, seemed to be going nowhere in Washington, which would use a little bit of public money to seed a lot of private money and guarantee a good rate of return, then he established, in effect, the country's first urban infrastructure bank in Chicago. And he's got a lot of people across party lines and all sectors of the economy involved in it. And so what we're trying to do is to get other cities to do the same thing. And I think and hope if the Congress takes up this tax reform issue, particularly on corporate tax reform, that they will look again at the infrastructure bank. It's a way to get a lot of private investment into doing public infrastructure. The investors will make money, and America's economy will grow, and a whole lot of good jobs will be created.
I mean, there is no mayor today, and I can tell you in the city of Chicago, where if you take an investment like we're about to now build a Riverwalk in downtown, that's going to unlock a huge amount of economic investment in office construction, residential construction, restaurants and retail. And every investment you make on the public side, on an investment like infrastructure at an airport or a Riverwalk, unleashes other type of investment. Yep. And every mayor in the United States has an opportunity to do something. Without the financial support of the federal or state capitals, we have to come with innovative ways to do it, and the CGI has been at the forefront of thinking of those models and creative ways to allow us to meet our obligations to our cities and our residents.
Great. John Meacham.
Mr. President, just quickly back to guns. In the part of the country where you and I come from, there's a sense, I think, that people are not in favor of common sense gun safety laws. First of all, do you agree with that premise? And how can we get that argument made in what the more conservative parts of the country about the importance of these kinds of laws?
Well, I think, first of all, I don't agree with it. I had a friend from the Arkansas Ozarks tell me a few months ago when I was home that he had a good friend who lived in the mountains who had 100 guns. He said the guy owns 100 guns and wish he owns 100 more, and he strongly supports universal background checks. He can't figure out why it's okay under the Second Amendment to do a background check when somebody buys a gun at a gun store and not okay if they buy it online or at a gun show. So I don't agree with that. I think what happens is if you tread on this, the NRA or the Gun Owners of America will run an ad against you or a billboard against you and say you're trying to take their guns away, and then people get into this hunker-down mode where they don't want to take a chance. But I think if you're willing to fight through this, we could make this argument. That's why Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Senator Toomey, the Republican senator from Pennsylvania, both of them big gun states, offered the bill they did. And, you know, I just remember when they didn't get their 60 votes that Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska said that she thought that with a little tweaking on individual gun sales, they could bring it up again and get their 60 votes. I think if they could do that, you would see a majority support in the country. What's going on is that these organized interest groups don't want anything done because it's a big source of their money and support to terrify people living out there in the country and try to make them think there's this big conspiratorial federal government trying to take all their guns away. I think if you could get clear-headed vote on the issue standing alone, and the overwhelming majority of Americans in every state would be for it.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
President
Thank
Clinton,
you, Mr. President.
Mayor Emanuel, thank you very much. Appreciate what you're doing out there. Okay.
Did I mention the Blackhawks to you?
Yes, you did. And tell Ari needs to, maybe get a
You know what?
t-shirt
Even a medium T-shirt instead of the baby gap
Tank
small.
top,
Thank you guys
please.
so much. We appreciate
We'll send
it.
you
Daily
T-shirts and
Rundown
hats.
after a break.
Coming right up.